Ernest, welcome to News in Focus, live on Radio Al-Ansar International. It's a pleasure having you here. And I know you're a councillor for Ward 27 and you call a spade a spade. Samuel has just mentioned that, there's a debt there's a huge debt the government has to manage. But the council is working out its budget from the ratepayers' contribution.
Yes.
And that's how they balance their budget. So what is the operation budget and the operating budget and the capital budget which the municipality is expected to spend on service delivery?
Right. Assalamu alaikum to the listeners and to yourself. And how's it, Sam? How are you doing? You're right. I apologies for being late tonight. But as I walked in, I heard Sam giving it. Now, I must actually agree with him because Sam and I have a very similar train of thought. So because where it comes to accountability measures being implemented effectively. So the two parts of it, I mean, I don't know the figures off like hand, but I mean, in terms of your CapEx budget and your OpEx budget, obviously you can break it down 50-50, but it's not as...
Isn't the total about 67 billion? Or is it,
67.6, somewhere in that region was.
And the operating is about 80%.
Yeah, so. Give or take. Yeah, and the other one is OpEx. But essentially where the problem is, all right, and you've touched on it, is that over the last 15-20 years, we have incorporated a lot of PALs into the system, and it's the ANC. I'm sorry to say, it's the ANC who caused the problem, and now they are reaping what they've sowed, quite frankly. But having said that, not everybody in the municipality is bad, but that's where the issue of accountability comes in, because if you have managed to get a job for a friend on the side here because we're politically connected on the side and that side, it becomes very difficult when you need that person in the political spectrum for their votes. Because remember, a lot of these people, I mean, I'm sure you've seen that there's one of our councillors that's found himself into the media with the nutrition scheme and the like, where the allegations are that his wife has been involved and the like. And I mean, that's a simple thing where people hold positions politically, but they need the votes from the same members that they are intending to discipline. Now, that's where the issue fundamentally comes in. And that's part and parcel of why your budgets start getting delayed and why this person isn't getting a slice of the pie and why the tenders are bloated by 50%, if not 100%. And the reality of it is this was done many years ago, in terms of bringing up jobs for PALs in. So the reality of it is, what did the ANC expect? That's a fundamental question. When we're talking about the implementation of projects, all right, what I've found over the last 6-7 years is that there's a large delay in how fast these projects are being rolled out, and it's simply because there is somebody or a few somebodies inside the system whose whole intention is profiteering. Like as what we call tender.
So you say money is being squandered?
Of course, money is being squandered.
Administration and corruption.
Of course,
and
yes.
it continues.
Yes, and
there's no action being taken.
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to put blame where it was. Up until the last election, the ANC was the majority political party.
But they're still controlling with the coalition.
Well, I mean, they're finding it very difficult to balance. That's where it is at the moment, because you have your radicals on the right, which are effectively your EFF, and you have your nationalists and the like, who are on the other side. And then you have the likes of the IFP, which sway where the wind goes. 1 minute they're here, and the next minute they're there. And I'll use a very simple example. In our last council meeting, we had a write-off of ₹500 million worth of assets from our electricity department. And that's everything from a laptop screen to scanners and printers. And
all gone missing.
No, hold on. Some of them, in the report that came to us, there are a number of items which are allegedly being stolen. So the report that came, and this is where I myself and the DA have a problem, is essentially, if you're going to present a asset register that you want to write off in the depreciation value of 290 million, okay, no problem. But tell us how many cases have been opened against these people that have stolen.
And where's the control of those assets?
That's the point. And I mean, you're saying you're writing off, 300-400 cables, but they've reached the end of lifespan. That's understandable. But it's something as simple as quantifying all of these things. How many cables, how many scanners, how many printers, and what's the accountability measures you've put in place as the municipality to say, well, we've opened 300 cases. I mean, I use the case of the guys who were caught up near the Mozambican border with the 56 or 76 street lights, which are quite expensive in nature, So the question is, how are we balancing our books, but we are not holding our own people accountable? Bearing in mind that not everybody's involved in this.
So what you're saying, Ernest, is that there's a host of problems not related to using the budget effectively, but there's maladministration.
100%. The ANC was in government until the DA took over. Correct me if it was 2006, if I'm not mistaken. And it was
Helen Zille.
Yeah, when Helen Zille was there, and Patricia de Lille and everyone.
The Western Cape.
Yeah, the Western Cape. Yeah, I'm talking about
Cape Town.
Yeah, Cape Town, this actual municipality. And remember, prior to that, there'd already been 10 or 15 years of ANC mismanagement. And Sam was quite correct. The reality of it is, if you're going to bring in people who are not best fit for the job you are advertising, and you're going to continuously take subpar individuals based on political affiliation, whether it is the DA doing it, whether it is the ANC, whether it's the PA, whether it's the IFP, if that is your modus operandi, you cannot blame anyone else but yourself when you are sitting in a position 10 or 15 or 30 years down the line when your own municipality cannot deliver or is failing to deliver. At the end of the day, one has to ask yourself, why did this happen? Why are we sitting with people who are incompetent? Because the reality is, no matter what's going to happen, if there's no terms of accountability and you bring in these people, no matter who they are, and you don't get the best fit for purpose and the best out of those people with degrees and whatnot. And might I add, on top of that, let's not assume that everybody with a degree also knows what they're doing, because we've had a number of incidents of people who have bought degrees. I mean, you look at the last 10 years of it, people saying they've got PhDs and master's degrees. They're going around and they were appointed on specific jobs and roles, only to find out there's no record of this. The institution doesn't have this person on file. So the reality of it is, the people who are hiring need to do an effective background check to make sure that they are hiring best fit for purpose, one, no matter who the political people are there. And you have to ensure that your person at the top, your city manager, the CFO, and his cohort there are people of integrity. Now, how do you do that? That's effectively determined by what they do and how they do it, and are they able to match what they say? I can also say I'm a city manager, but I do bugger all. Excuse my French.
So what you're saying is, you must have that management and leadership skills when you're holding these positions, together with the technical competence.
Yes.
For example, if you claim you're going to be a CFO, you must have the qualification of a chartered accountancy or a BCom degree with commerce as a graduate,
exactly.
as a sort of, would you the necessary qualifications. And if you're an engineer, you must have an engineering qualification together with the experience to be head of engineering department, which most municipalities are not really following. But I want to bring Hassan in shortly. I just want to chat briefly about effective management, having the right people at the top to motivate those below. Let's look at the South African rugby side that has won the World Cup twice, that have got, an integrated team. The captain is Sia Kolisi, black, but they have competent black individuals that are playing together with white and colored counterparts. Yes. And you have a good mix, and they won the Rugby World Cup twice. The Proteas won the Cricket World Cup, and they have a nice mix of competent people based on merit. So the country can work as long as you appoint the right people for the job, like what has been proven in the sports fraternity. In most of the sport, soccer, okay, it's a bit
I was about
down,
to say that.
But what I'm saying is that needs to be improved. But if you look at the work situation, a similar principle applies. Because if you don't have the personnel to do the work, you're not going to have the achievement.
That's it.
Now, off the record, we were talking about soccer, Premier League soccer. And Man U is sitting probably 17th of the 20 positions because they had the wrong coach, wrong managers, wrong players, etc. And they're trying to fix that up. Whereas other sides, they are scouting the correct players to make sure they deliver. Likewise, in a work situation in municipalities, What you are saying is get competent people, forget about the race.
Yes.
And as a mayor, who may be a black mayor or chair of EXCO might be a black, but if he's got the right personnel, he or she will get the credit.
Yes.
Now the country fails to realize that you cannot work on just having civic structures that are linked to a particular political party.
The ANC has got an identity crisis because in itself, you have people who want the country to work. They have people who actively want the country to work. Let's call a spade here.
Okay.
But in the same cohort of people, you also have people who are still trotting around between two ideas, whether they should jump ship before it's too late or they should hang around to save their jobs. Because remember, and I'm glad you mentioned it, when it comes to the thought processes people put behind governance, you have to have a long-term approach of what actions I take now will impact the next 5 or 10 years. That's not happening. So you have a bunch of people who are internally having a problem. When we come along and say, well, guys, actually where we have been voted into, a majority municipality government, we're actually taking what the residents are saying, ratepayers and what, and we are trying as best as we can to undo the amount of damage that you've done for the last 15, 20 years, and still trying to take in what we can to push through to service the people. That's the fundamental point, service to the people. You're from housing. You know the quality of houses that were being produced 10, 15 years ago versus the last 5 years. And the outputs matched what was set down per their targets and KPIs. It's not being done. I mean, I think we are at probably 30%, 20% of the targets 10 years ago. And the quality is not the same. So you have to ask yourself, where did we go wrong in the last 10 years? And I mean, I won't presume to speak for at a national level because obviously I'm not in the caucuses and the like, but the reality is we as people, citizens of the country, have, whether we've joined the organizations in the past and let go and not whatever, we have put a bunch of idiots there. And I'm talking primarily about the ANC and the EFF and the like, because you have put populists there. Let's be honest about that. You have put a bunch of populists who are only worried about themselves, all right? And that's where it clashes with service delivery. Because when you look at it and say, well, what credentials do you have that actually says prior to your public service, because we call it public service, what have you done in the community that was so marvelous? What can you prove? I've joined politics and I was a struggle veteran and the like. Okay, good for you. But what have you actively done to build this country post-apartheid? What have you done? I can't tell me it's the number of houses we've built because that's been decreasing. You can't tell me it's replacing 300 kilometers of infrastructure every month over 12 months. You can't tell me that. So the wheel has fallen off the bandwagon in terms of prioritizing the people. Essentially, that's what's happened, because you cannot tell me that in 15 years, every president we've had has not had this question of saying, actually, we are jeopardizing our ratepayers. We are jeopardizing the people that we want the money from. Businesses, agricultural sector, the business and the like. Why have we not made doing business in this country easier? Why have we not done that? That's the first question. The second question would be to say, how are we holding our own comrades effectively accountable while they're still in the same organization? Why are we not doing that? Oh, I'm sorry, because I'm going to lose votes. So the reality of it is we have found ourselves at a baseline level, and this is something I want to emphasize to the voters at large. They hold the power and the direction of the municipalities in their hands. That cannot be understated. If you want a municipality that functions, put a effect, and I don't want to say politicians, but put enough politicians there, and whoever's committing to effective service delivery, put them there to effectively do what you are asking. Because the same mayor, the same speaker, the same deputy mayor can turn around and to the city manager and say, actually, naughty, you haven't done a good job. Your officials are failing us. But it doesn't help when we have, over the last 15, 20 years, trying to combat something which we have tacitly approved.
So what you're saying, Ernest, is that
all right. I'm glad you touched on that, because too often do we racialize politics and which political parties actually, appear to are supported by who. And the reality is that for the homeless people on the ground, and I mean, I engage with them quite frequently, they want tangible results. Their request is simple. Their vision is, we need stability. We need a place to stay. We need, obviously, a job of some sort or a stipend of some sort, something like that, which takes the blokes off of the street. Right. The problem is, back in the day, and I say the problem is because back in the day, call it, I think, early 2000s, correct me, Sam, we had, in the South Beach there, we had what we called the Ark, where it had its own clinic and it was subsidized and it had 2,000 people it could take. Right. And there was no foresight to say, well, if we take this down, what do we put in its place? Instead, there was a decision to say, let's make that the V&A waterfront. Instead of saying, okay, putting all that money in there, instead of replacing our infrastructure and the rest of it, because the foresight was lacking. And I mean, the reality of it is, you had people back then that were saying, all right, now how can we get our people into chowder money? And that's the problem. People have the mindset where it's now our time to eat. And I say to people, regardless of whatever race you are, everyone should have the idea that we all are impacted by greed, we are all impacted by corruption, and that should stop. But the reality is, you can't stop people from eating if you are not willing to hold them accountable. Now, that leads me to the next question. All right. Many people have said to me, and I'm glad you've touched on it, that we won't support the DA because of its stance on Zionism and the rest of it. I simply my response to people is say, listen, that is a national ambit. That is for the guys in Parliament to actually deal with, because they deal with foreign affairs and international affairs. At a local level, we don't deal with that. Yes, we take, and many members have come to me and said, I would support you, but it's just this point that we cannot agree on. And I said to them, please, remember in your voting to separate your votes accordingly. When you are voting for in a municipal election, you are voting for your municipality. Yes, they have engagements with foreign governments in terms of in trying to get tourists in and the like, and trying to get foreign investment to some degree. International affairs is limited to that background. When it's for the national vote, that's when you're voting for your opinion on Palestine and the rest of it. And that's the stream that comes in. So when voters go to the polls, they need to remember that fundamental distinction. Because if you don't, you're also coming to me and saying, I'm not voting for you, but I know you do the job. And then we're going to put
Ernest, thanks a lot. I think we've run out of time.